So I wanted to just talk a little bit about why is digital imaging so important, um, and maybe even specifically about why it's a class that's required for all of our degrees and certificates. Um, it's a recommended course for almost all of our other classes we offer. Um, well, you know, I'll get a little bit more into that, but digital imaging is how images are presented onto a screen, and most everything we do is presented on a screen and is an image of some sort. You're looking at an image right now. It's an image of words, but it is an image. And so pretty much everything we do at some point is probably going to interface with digital imaging to a certain degree, or at least the techniques or methodologies of digital imaging. So having a strong foundation with digital imaging really makes all the other applications more fluid and more flexible. So we are a CE department, so that means career education. And so there's a fair amount of emphasis on careers, and so I was just trying to kind of list some of the ones I could think of that are related to digital imaging that aren't actually digital imaging. So like game design, animation, 2D, 3D, photography. I mean, obviously photography, that makes almost perfect sense, but film, maybe not necessarily are we doing just one image, but sometimes you are working with singular image in film, but a lot of techniques in terms of color and stuff are going to be color grading, color correction, some of, framing, lighting, those sorts of things, graphic design, um, obviously working with images and not necessarily always text, but there's other applications that work with that. But same with web design. Oftentimes using Photoshop or digital imaging for that, UI design, user interface. That's what that stands for. These are all classes that we offer so far. Product design. That's actually not in our department, but it is real similar to graphic design. But again, most likely utilizing Photoshop or imagery. And then some that people don't think about, like science or the space industry or astronomy, or even the medical industry. A lot of people don't think about these, but this is a really big employment opportunity for a lot of people. These industries use images a lot. So just quickly, X-ray. That's a digital imaging technician. That's what you're dealing with, is you're exposing images of people's insides, right? And you're managing the file formats and whatnot, and distributing them to people, and that's what you're doing. Same with astronomy. It's for the most part photography. They're really big cameras. Space industry is working a lot with um, satellite imagery and whatnot. Science, obviously, again, lots of pictures, lots of imaging going on. So it's not artistic per se. Maybe sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But it's imaging still, and so you know there's probably a lot more I could even add here. I'm just kind of started for a while and thought, okay, I don't. I'm just kind of struggling to find more, but there probably are a lot, and these aren't really the main things. If you were to look up um, digital imaging technician or something, there's a video to watch about that. You're going to find like a certain style of job, but these are all industries that utilize the same information, and so you might want to consider looking at these. I kind of just put in some options. I don't know, employment options. That's a weird way of wording that, but it's just like kind of just throwing out like what do you do that uses this information? Concept design, character design, level design. That's for game design. 2D art seems kind of maybe obvious, but this could be an animation. This could be in game design. This could be Same with these. I mean, all of these: game design, animation, um, even possibly the film and the UI and the web. All of these. Um, Texture creation utilized a lot in um, 2D, 3D art, and animation, game design, color grading, the affecting light and color in film, photography, mood creation. That's an important part of all of that, and just understanding color in general. Um, Color corrections, getting color to look correct. Sort of talk more about that, but it's a big part. These two kind of go hand in hand a lot, but um, you know technique and methodology for this, it works really well because you're just working with one image rather than, say, a film where you're dealing with an entire sequence of images. And so this is a good way to kind of just start with those techniques and get a good handle on it, and then apply to a whole entire film. Obviously, photo editing, I mean, most people maybe kind of think of that, but just manipulation and editing of photos. A matte artist, which is a lot like 2D artist, or Illustrator, kind of similar but different. Um, Maybe Illustrator makes sense to you. Painting, a painter, digital painter. Special effects people doing film industry for green screen, or um, we could put motion graphics in there. I didn't put that up there. That should put that in there. Motion graphics. It's another class that we offer that would take advantage of all of these same kind of tool sets. Um, so special effects, product design. I actually put that up there. I don't know why I put it twice. Printing, scanning, file management, file compression. These are all real common digital imaging technician processes that you would be working with. Communications, and those people could be working with these sorts of things. I could put here um, uh, newspapers, or news outlets, or those types of things. We could do you know well, that's photography. Let's just leave that at photography. But graphic design, and huge industry, massive industry, and I'm probably forgetting a whole bunch more that are here. But you can see that the list is really long. In fact, it actually covers pretty much almost all of the classes that we offer, um, and industries that are involved in digital imaging. And so, our digital media rather, and so that's why digital imaging is important. That's why we use this class and as a recommended, and it's in all of our degrees, because what you learn here is going to really help you um, throughout all the other classes that we offer. Let's take a look at some of these things. So I kind of just have a couple tabs here. This is Indeed. I just kind of typed in digital imaging job or something like that, and what you can see is that you get you're going to get these kinds of jobs that are going to be a little bit more about well, here's a biomedical photographer. It's not terrible pay. I mean, these are pretty good, but and the cool thing is that they're not. You can definitely get these jobs out of a degree from here. Some of these are going to be a little bit more intense, but um, again, a lot of scientific, medical imaging type stuff. Digital imaging specialist. You know, there's a lot of interesting mapping techniques and things like this. So you're going to find that there's going to be some unique qualities that are required that use digital imaging, but are also sort of like really looking for slightly different things, like mapping technique. I'm not even sure what that means. Do they mean for textures, or do they mean for um, actual maps? Or usually mapping would be kind of similar in that way. But you know, again, lots of Photoshop, um, asset management. So this is file management or project management, which we talk about a little bit. So you'll notice there's a lot of like project management in these things. Um, and this is just kind of what's available. Pottery Barn, like again, just odd places that you find these kinds of jobs, right? Like they're all over. So, if you search these, you're going to find this style, but like I said, you might want to like expand that search and start looking in game design or those sorts of things. Um, just a quick like Wikipedia search on digital imaging, and just you can get a sense of what is digital imaging. I think that this is a pretty awesome um, sentence here. You know, this is what digital imaging can be classified by electromagnetic radiation waves whose variable attenuation, right, pass through or reflect off objects. It's like such a crazy sentence. It seems so like crazy. Of course, waves are important. It's light and stuff like that, and we'll talk more about that. But all these things actually make sense, and I can read that sense, and it's actually a really good definition of what we're doing. But for most people, that'll seem like a really weird way of wording that. But here's X-rays. We just talked about that. Radiology. There's just so many different things that take advantage of digital imaging. It's just sort of amazing. Um, Here's like kind of the history, and this is interesting, because the first thing was this cable picture transmission system. I have a picture of this. I'll show it to you in a moment. But these guys were trying to send pictures from from New York to London, right? And so, they were like, how do we get a picture there? Instead of like sending the actual picture, could we send it like electronically somewhere? How over a phone cable? And they figured it out. And, that's kind of like, you might say like sort of like how the web works today. But, that was a big deal back then. And they didn't really um, have a way to do it digitally. So they figured out some pretty weird ways of doing it. But, digital imaging sensors. I would just kind of go through this and just take a look. Like what is here? Uh-huh. Again, medical imaging. This is just a huge industry right here, and really a lot of jobs there. But also some really weird stuff like artificial intelligence, where facial recognition, remote detection, pattern detection, um, color processing. Um, there's a lot going on in this world. I probably should go back to this and put artificial intelligence. Can I spell that? Probably not. Oh, yeah, no. Like I said, not the best speller. This would also be machine learning. There's actually a really lot of stuff going on in these two industries right now. And Photoshop actually takes advantage of some of this stuff for some of its tools, which we'll talk about later. But take a look at this. This is just the Wikipedia, just searching digital imaging. That's all I did there. So digital imaging, Wikipedia. A couple other things, just, I'm not going to talk too much about raster graphics, but that's what we're working on. I'll talk to you a little bit more about this when we look at different types of Photoshop options for you guys. This is a video that I have for you. It's just, this is a digital technician. It's what he does, right? This is what he does on set. He just talks about it. I thought maybe it'd be good for you guys to see. Good entry-level job, and actually pretty cool job. So take a look at that. We looked at that already. Digital matte artist, this is the Wikipedia page, but probably better just to look at some of these images, because this is a digital matte artist right here. And these look probably sort of familiar, these types of images, especially for game design, movies, conceptual art. You're going to see tons of this stuff. These are often used as backgrounds for movies, for games. So you might actually have like a character animated walking along this walkway, for instance. You might have like 3D like vehicles flying across here or something, or maybe even birds or something. And this set is actually painted as a 2D image with 3D objects flying through it or something like that. This is a real common tool and use of the type of technology that we're working with. And you'll see this type of work all over. So matte painting is a really huge part of the digital media workflow. And so, it's a good thing to take a look at. And, we're going to be kind of painting for a little while. And so you'll see how we can take advantage of maybe some of these and try to recreate some of these types of matte paintings. Um, Space industry, just kind of looking at space industry, you can see, it's kind of a cool image that's like a rocket taking off. Um, and these images, this is a technique, this is a style of image, and this is really a little bit more about photography, but um, you know, there might have been some work that was put into this just to try to get it to pop a little bit more. But this is SpaceX, and this is actually a company, and they're trying to promote themselves. So they want good images. They're trying to sell their rockets. They're trying to sell people on launching things into space. So um, there's opportunity here as well. So SpaceX needs digital imaging experts. They need people that do Photoshop. And it doesn't seem like you could work on rockets, but you actually kind of could in a way. I guess it's probably stretching things a little bit, but they're just kind of cool images too. And these are always fun, these kind of long exposure nighttime images. But they're also just trying to like show what the heck they're doing. So these maybe are a little bit more like graphic design in a way, but they're trying to excite and get people interested in space and what they're doing. And so, there's an opportunity here. Um, you know, didn't mention it, but textures. Let's get some images. You know, these are just a lot of these are pictures of like paper or like metal or like I don't know what that is, like some sort of stucco or something, or a wall, or maybe random shapes. But these are called textures, and texture creation is something also that's really useful in the industry, and something that you can get involved in, especially for game as well. Like let's do game. So games require a lot of different styles of textures, and you can see some of them are really pretty straightforward, and some are pretty complex, and some you might even recognize a little bit. But there's a lot to this type of texture creation, and this is called a normal map, and this is a diffuse map, and whatever. You have like maybe occlusion or something like that for lighting, but ultimately the whole thing comes together. It looks quite three-dimensional, and this is all actually all 2D work, and can all be created in Photoshop, especially with some of the plugins that are available with Photoshop. And so another opportunity for work and employment, and the reason why we want to know this. So if you come into my game design class, I don't have to tell you how to use Photoshop to make a texture. You can just make a texture because you sort of know how to use Photoshop. If you're in, same with um, animation, you know how to use Photoshop. You can make an image plane. You can create things that are needed for that class. Same with um, uh, graphic design or film, or if you get into photography, and maybe there's a digital photography class, and it's not necessarily all going to be about Photoshop. It's going to be more about cameras, and you're going to want to know about how to use the camera. You don't want to, if you have an understanding of Photoshop, you can progress on Photoshop and photography much faster. So all of these are going to take advantage of this class. And so when we go through the class, what I try to do is I try to make it so that we're learning things and aiming towards the tools that would be useful for all these classes. So I don't always hit every single tool in the class, but I do try to hit most of them, at least talk about them. But the ones that we really go over are the ones that I think will probably be the most useful for uh, the rest of your experience in the digital media department, and maybe even beyond that as well. So hope that helps a little bit, gives you understanding why this class, why we teach it. Um, Yeah, so I'm going to leave it right there.